Hello, welcome to this week's edition of the Record Rangers podcast, brought to you in conjunction with NordVPN. My name is Andy Newport. As ever, I'm joined here at the Rangers training ground by my colleague Scott McDermott. Scott, how are you?
Your coughing colleague, Scott McDermott.
Well, hopefully Scott can make it through this without passing out. There's a wee bit of tickly throat there, pal.
Definitely, but these flights have been catching up with me, Andy.
Well, we'll try and keep it tight, 20 minutes or that. Listen, we've just been up this afternoon, to speak to Derek McInnes and the new Rangers captain, Lawrence Shankland. Scott, what's your take on the selection for the man who's now going to be wearing the armband for the season ahead?
It's not a surprise to me when there was a debate, obviously, about who was going to be the new Rangers captain. There was a few contenders for the guys that Derek McInnes has brought in this summer, but to me, Lawrence Shankland was always the outstanding candidate. Derek McInnes said it himself today. The advantage Shankland had was that the manager has got a body of evidence, if you like, for last season at Hearts, where he was his skipper. I just think that relationship with the manager, the age that Shankland's at, the experiences he's had. He's now an international striker, 30 years old. Also, he knows this club, inside out. He might not have been here as a player, but he supported them, from when he was a boy. So he knows about the history, he knows the expectations and the demands at Rangers. I just think where Lawrence Shankland is in his career, he's also a guy who's robust, a bit like James Tavernier before him here. He's available most weeks to play. I think he'll be a starter most weeks, if not every week for Rangers when he's fit. So, I think it was a no-brainer. That relationship between manager and captain, given that McInnes had it with Shankland last season, I always thought he was the prime candidate for the job.
I mean, it's always a bit difficult to get into a new squad, a new dressing room, and to sort of go out there and put yourself as the leader of the, especially when there's been guys, big fighters that have been at the club for a number of years. But for me, just seeing him, the way he's getting into the squad, the way he's carried himself, it looks like he's somebody who's comfortable being in that leadership. Obviously, he's had that spell a couple of years at Hearts, but even coming in here, it looks like he's comfortable in his shoes, going and go, listen, I'm one of the big characters in this dressing room. I can take on that burden, the responsibility, the leadership burden that comes here.
I agree, and I think he's grown as a person in the last few years, Lawrence Shankland. I mean, he was always a good guy to talk to in an interview, but I feel as if, I don't know if you agree, but I've seen a real difference in him, and I think it probably has coincided with getting the captaincy at Hearts. So just taking on that responsibility, that mantle of leading a dressing room. He's almost kind of grown and matured as a person and probably as a player when you look at how he plays the game now. He used to be an out-and-out penalty box striker. He's got a lot more to his game now. As I say, he's an seasoned international now as well. So, I think he's really grown into being a strong captain at Hearts. And as you say, I mean, he's only been here a few weeks, but he looks ready-made for this role. More so than other guys that were mentioned, with Dan Neil coming in, who was the captain at Sunderland for a while, obviously. A couple other guys had the armband in pre-season, guys like Ross McCrory, Ben Godfrey was obviously only on loan, but Shankland was an outstanding candidate, and I agree with you. I think he's made for it. Even the way he spoke today, I think he's ready for it, ready to take on that responsibility. And it is a big responsibility because not only does he need to lead the team, he's got to score the goals, try and win them the fight.
Well, this was the next point I was going to come to, because he's under pressure already. Any striker come to Rangers Celtic, you have to be able to back up with goals. He's going to have to deal with that, plus also trying to get the best out of his teammates around him. I mean, how much a challenge is that when you as I say, there's going to be a lot of fingers pointed at him, a lot of eyes on him. If he doesn't get off to if he doesn't score 2 goals at Tannadice come Friday night, people will be looking at him going, is this the right selection? I mean,
I think it's huge. I mean, and if he goes a few, it's right. If he goes a few games as a striker with foot score, suddenly the pressure starts to build. But as I say, he looks comfortable with that responsibility. He was quick to say the day he needs help. He needs others around him to shoulder a bit as well. And I think that's right. And in terms of help on the pitch, I'm sure we're going to talk about Rangers recruitment and how kind of desperate need at the moment for wide players and creativity, and that buys into it because Shankland is a guy that needs service. If he's going to score the goals that Rangers expect him to, 20 plus this season. He's going to need service for the wide areas. He's had that most of his career. Rangers aren't quite there with that yet in terms of bringing guys in, but no, I think you're right. It's a massive responsibility, big scrutiny. He said that today, even off the pitch as well. I think his life will change pretty quickly. When you're the Rangers captain, you're a Glasgow boy. You might need to think twice about getting it a bit more often. Now that he's captain, in terms of where he kind of goes for dinner and stuff like that. And that might sound daft, but when you listen to James Tavernier, who's obviously been it for a number of years here, and those were the kind of things that he had to think about. So it's a massive role, but as it's touched on, I think he looks ready to take it on.
That's quite interesting you saying that. I mean, I remember going through towards the end of last season to speak to him when he was obviously at Hearts, and obviously it was just title mania everywhere. Like it was especially the sort of closing 3-4 weeks of the season where you just couldn't escape that pressure. And I remember saying to him, like, what's it like? Are you able to? And thankfully, because I think at that stage he lived in Glasgow, he was able to sort of get away from the Hearts fans come up to him, want to pester him with questions. But now he's living back the city now. This is
like that.
I mean, just on that though, I mean, again, it was interesting what you're saying there about James Tavernier. That was something that McInnes himself spoke about, and it was just like he felt it was really unfair in James Tavernier to be the guy that almost became the poster boy of all Rangers failures because he was the captain, because he was the one who'd been here for so long. We all seen the videos, the sort of mocking viral videos that the Celtic fans have put up about the disappointed, and it was always seemed to be Tavernier that got rolled out to sort of speak on behalf of the team when they hadn't performed well. And maybe at times he was the only guy that was sort of trying to carry them. He's going to look to try and change that this season. He's going to want Dan Neil, Cammy Devlin, Godfrey, to go and sort of front up and take their share of it. That's what's needed, isn't it? I mean, this is we've been saying it for a long time that Rangers do not have enough leaders on the pitch. Now he's going to demand out of the guys. He's going to make sure that they are the ones that can go out there and help out the captain and chip in with not just goals and assists, but big performances. Leading the team through the difficult moments.
I think it's interesting. You're right. Even Derek McInnes on the outside noticed it, and I think what that highlighted with Tavernier certainly in the last few years was, there was nobody else. It felt like we've covered Rangers for a good few years now, and it did feel like every big disappointment, every negative result, every negative story. Apart from Jack Butland, really, it was probably second in line. James Tavernier had to deal with all of that, and you can be critical of him, but at the same time, they need to feel sorry for him in that sense as well. And I don't even think Tavernier maybe changed the last couple of years, but I think a lot of times he didn't look comfortable in that role, coming out and trying to explain defeats. And
I think he always had that thing about where he felt he couldn't really say what he wanted to say. He was having to try and protect egos, confidence levels, and I think you saw latterly, especially his last year, he didn't pull his punches quite to the same extent, and I think probably had he done that earlier, maybe things might have not spiralled to the extent they did. Maybe the opportunities that we saw would have been missed. A Rangers captain has to be able to speak his mind, and then it's up to his teammates to respond to that. I don't think enough players have responded to that.
And I think the thing about Shankland, Andy, and it's not a criticism of James Tavernier, he was here for 10 years. Of course, he grew and he had a connection with the fans. He knew what it meant. But didn't he grow up as a Rangers supporter? I mean, Shankland knows how these Rangers fans will feel after whether it's a win, a draw, or a defeat. He'll look at. He's got family around him. I don't doubt that. Season ticket holders and stuff. So he will know acutely, the feeling amongst the Rangers supporters. So he can relate to that, immediately post match after games. And I do think that will help. I think when you've got that real connection, when you've been a supporter your whole life, I do think it helps. That's maybe a wee advantage you'll have over Tav.
What will certainly help Derek McInnes in the next couple of days is getting a few more bodies in.
Yep.
We've spoken about it over the last few weeks of just how short they are in certain areas. Most notably the defence. I think 4 or 5 senior defenders signed up at the moment, and obviously the wider areas. That'll be something that Derek McInnes is keen to sort of bulk up his options there. Just in terms of the news today, I'm going to try and not butcher these pronunciations, so forgive me if I do get them wrong. So confirmed to be coming in, a deal to be completed shortly. £3 million from Philadelphia Union. Olwethu Makhanya. I mean, I've put that wildly wrong. I'm going to need to.
That was worse than I thought.
I'm going to have to.
Olwethu Makhanya.
Oh, there you go. I told you were supposed to say it. We'll try and brush up that one for by the time he signs. Also, he's a centre back from South African centre back from the MLS. Obviously, they're so short in numbers now. John Suter looks like he could be leaving really on the dot. It's Ben Godfrey and Manny Fernandez. Dujon Sterling can cover there. Ross McCrory can cover there if need be. But in terms of out and out centre backs, it's really those two that are the option. So Makhanya, if he comes in, we'll give them another option. But it's really up front in the wider areas that Rangers are lacking, isn't it? That's where they are. You've seen through pre-season just how little invention and guile they've got. That's where they really need to add. So Janoa Markello from Coventry. Have I done all right with that? That's no bad. And then Amario Crozier-Dubry. I think I've got that one down. A fine line. He's also a name that's sort of bandied about by Brighton. I must admit, that one surprises me because obviously Brighton owned by Tony Bloom. I'm just not entirely sure he's going to be wanting to sort of give away one of his prize youngsters to a direct rival of Hearts. But in terms of the other two, I mean, what do you think they'll bring?
Look, one thing's clear. He's got to add. McInnes knows he's got to add the final third. He's short of attacking options in the wide areas or behind the strikers. Going to Tannadice on Friday. He's got 4 really good strikers. Obviously, that's not an issue. But it's the supply, as we touched on, to get the ball into Shankland, Sharniti, maybe Majovski and Nadiri as well. So it's an area they really need to strengthen in. Defensively, look, Makhanya will come in, you're right, as a kind of third centre back alongside Fernandez and Godfrey. Derek McInnes clearly rates him. Look, I think it's a gamble with a lot of these signings. A South African boy, 22-year-old, coming for the MLS. A culture shock, I think, coming into Rangers, the Scottish Premier.
Especially when you think about just the sheer number of MLS signings that come to Scotland, especially come to Rangers, and not really. I mean, you're talking about Moedu. I mean, and even then, he was a guy that sort of split opinion. I mean, is there many more than that you can bring?
Really sort of. But what the recent ones obviously have been like James Sands, Jose Cifuentes have come in and just haven't done it.
Haven't mile off it, really.
Haven't cut it. So that's why I do think it's a gamble. But as I say, they've identified Makhanya, and Rangers do need competition at the back. The John Suter going. I think then McInnes will probably look to add even more defenders before the window closes, but just to get somebody in before Friday. Don't know how fit the boy is, but I'd imagine the manager will hope that he kind of hits the ground running and he's available even for the bench on Friday night if he can get it over the line. So it was important to get somebody in defensively, but I think they'll now turn their attention to the forward areas. They clearly need wingers. Looks like Oliver Anton might be on his way out. Looks like Ross McCausland might be on his way out as well. So trying to offload players that are surplus to requirements. The two that you mentioned, I agree. Crozier-Dubry had a brilliant season last year at Bolton. I think clubs have inquired a bit more ready to Brighton. Whether Tony Bloom's going to allow that to happen, I'd be quite surprised as well. But who knows? It certainly, as I say, the kind of evidence of last season suggests it'd be a good sign for Rangers coming in off the right, which I think that Derek McInnes is looking for. Markello's the same. I mean, he's an interesting one. Rangers have had this guy on their radar since January when they signed Scott Volkson. They've obviously went back to that kind of list. But since January, he's obviously got a move to Coventry. Hasn't really worked out for him in terms of he's only had 5 sub-appearances. But if you think about it, I mean, he's still a young player. Coventry were in the midst of a title race, get to most of the Premier League.
Lampard is famous for being reluctant to change his lineup, so it's always going to be a big ask for him to break into that.
I think they were looking to bed him in, and the reason I say Rangers will be keep tabs on him since January is obviously his Coventry spell. We can't really look at that and think right, he'd be great sided. But what he did last season at Zurich is when Rangers were really watching him. He's somebody that they like.
It's funny just the way that the Rangers support can be, they can jump to conclusions. You know, had Rangers signed him last January, I think a lot of people were excited, but because he's went to Coventry and not done much, both are then going, oh, this guy's he's another championship dud. I mean, it's one of these ones. Listen, I think we've seen enough players coming in and out at Rangers over the last few years where until you see them in the flesh, you can't really draw any
All these guys are a gamble. I mean, unless you're signing, you look at some of the signings that Ben McInnes has made early, like Shankland came in just before he got the job, but I think Shankland, Ross McCrory, Cammy Devlin, people like that. When Devlin's come in and immediately become a fan's favourite right away. Kind of knew that in the case because you know exactly what you're getting for Cammy Devlin. You know what you're getting for Shankland. I'll do the same with McCrory, same with Godfrey. Daniel as well, obviously. What he did at Sunderland in terms of promotion to the Premier League. You kind of know what they're giving you, but you think about the South African coming in for the MLS, a couple of these wingers, but especially Markello, as you say, because for 6 months we've not really had any evidence that he's up to it. It's a gamble. Unless you're signing a Shankland and a Devlin, do you know what you're getting? Or at the opposite end of the scale, dare I say it, maybe like Celtic have done with Hoy for Bodo Glimp. They're paying that kind of money. It was Champions League proven. No, it tells you a goal scorer at that level. So you kind of know what you're getting for him. Everything in between, I think, it's a gamble. That's where you obviously rely on the recruitment team to get it right. I think Rangers' recruitment this season, or this summer window, will be a mixture of, is already a mixture of guys that Derek McInnes knows and can trust, but also guys that the recruitment team have had on their radar for the last 6 months to a year.
Which is not dissimilar to the way it worked at Hearts last season. You know, James Town obviously have their way of working, type of targets they want to bring in club. McInnes went along with that, but on the basis that he could bring in the guys that he could rely upon. I mean, and you can see signs like
Stuart, for instance.
You can see that already happening here. Rangers will have a guys that they've been keeping an eye on, you know, that would have probably been arriving had it still been Danny Rowe that was in charge. You know, they'd get club signings, if you want to call it that, but Derek McInnes will have guys that are important to him, important the way he wants to play and the way he wants to look.
It certainly feels like that for outside. They don't know for definite, but it feels like Derek McInnes has come into the club. There's a recruitment team in place. He can't watch every player, every game, every week, so there has to be some kind of trust there that they're identifying the right players. Once he tells them obviously what he's looking for, but I think you're right. It's as if there's almost a kind of agreement there that okay, you give me lists of players and different positions, and I'll have a look at them, guys that you've been watching for ages. But the kind of payoff to that is I need to get a few guys in that I know and I can trust and are used to this, like Devlin, Shankland and McCrory.
You can understand the rationale behind that, because if McInnes knows he's got guys that are as close to certain in terms of he knows the performance levels and the levels they can cut, then you shouldn't see the sort of fluctuation of form that we've seen with these guys who are coming in unknowns and need to bed in and need to get used to the league and new environment. Need to find a house, all that kind of stuff that goes in to make some transfers sometimes not as straightforward as you think they're going to be. So just sort of moving on then to the game on Friday night. And it should be said that Derek McInnes is going to be on the touchline, we believe. The Rangers have appealed that, so it looks like have appealed his 3-game ban for the comments he made towards the end of last season. So Hearts manager, so he should be on the touchline. What sort of team do you see him putting out? I mean, you look at the game last weekend against West Ham, the friendly. Obviously, Ryan Adira gets a chance to start up front. Doesn't really do much. I think we both agree you expect to see a Shankland, Chermiti starting lineup. But given the numbers available right now and the bodies available, how do you see the midfield lining up? And what sort of wide options? I mean, as you say, that's where they're really short. I mean, who I think he certainly showed a wee bit more than Gisama did at the weekend when he came on. But again, you know, it was a pretty low bar. But obviously he's away. Gisama really had manager pulling his hair out at times in the weekend. I mean, how do you see the midfield shape up?
I think at the moment, and I'm maybe put myself in a limb, but I mean, for me, I think 10 positions are probably nailed on. I think with what he's got available at the minute, Fivelby's fit. I think the back four picks itself in terms of Sterling, Fernandes, Godfrey and Romans. 2 strikers pick themselves, Shankland and Shamiti. Midfield's obviously interesting, but so far in pre-season, for most of the time, he's gone with a kind of, it's a 4, but it's a 3 central midfield, 1 playing narrow and 1 play wide. I think Diomande, Daniel and Carney Devlin will start in the game, and I think there's 1 position up for grabs, probably on the left, and it will be Asgard or Finlay Curtis.
Finlay Curtis.
I think so. I don't think Gassama's done enough. I mean, he'll probably be on the bench, but
we had this discussion last week. I mean, for me, I don't think Finlay Curtis is. I think a lot of people
disagree with so TC.
I think a lot of people, a lot of fans, are rethinking the excitement levels we had with Phil. Again, it's not me to say that he's a bad player or anything like that, or he's not there. I don't think he's ready yet. I think he needs more games. I just don't think he'll get him at Ibrox this season. I don't think he's shown in pre-season that he's where Rangers need him to be right now.
No, I disagree. I think he is Brady. And I'm not saying he's going to start every single game for Rangers, start every week. Of course, I'm not. Still a young boy learning the game. But if Derek McInnes is going to look at having four wingers, out and out wingers, I don't mean like an Asgard, but I mean 4 out and out wide players.
Is that what Finlay Curtis is? I don't think he is. I think he's a goal scorer that plays wide. I don't think he's a creator. I think that's what Rangers are lacking.
I think all his best work came as a wide left for Killian last season.
Yeah, but he was getting
chances.
Getting into the box and creating chances, scoring chances, taking chances. I'm not sure he's a creator of goals. I think that's where Rangers are lacking right now. You need somebody who's going to be laying on assists and getting to the byline pretty cross.
Whether he's even if he's not assisting but he's scoring, then
but right now that's where Rangers are falling down. They don't have anybody to provide the assist, and that's where you need somebody.
They're all short with options at the minute. That's the problem. And of course, as we've touched on, we're going to bring in 2 or 3 wide players. You would think as Warrido will say, be attacking players, a 5 or 4 players. I think Curtis will be involved, and I think for Friday night the options limited. Gassama hasn't done anywhere near enough. Anton's obviously going to go. He got other guys around the squad like your Bayramis and the people like that. They're not going to be involved. In terms of what he's got available, for me, that other midfield position will go to either Asgard or Curtis. And Asgard's maybe favourite, but he said he obviously confirmed today that Asgard's fit. Asgard has looked good in the Cup of Friendly games, so he could easily play coming off the right.
Well, that would be my next question in terms of Asgard. If it is, I mean, I think we've seen when he's played wide at times last season. Again, it wasn't a natural fit, and again, last season's a whole different movie with all the things that the team had to contend with during that period. But I think you've seen him. If you can get him released as he was when he got the injury that made him a doubt, the shoulder injury, if you get him into those central channels and get him running, he can be a threat. So do you think that maybe necessitates a tweak and go back to that sort of narrow sort of box midfield that they played at times under Danny Rowe?
Well, that's what the manager's got to decide on. I mean, if you play Asgard as part of that midfield 4 that I spoke about, I mean, it is very narrow, and I mean, you're sacrificing you're probably sacrificing your crosses into the box, which is probably not going to come in. You both struggle to get it for full-back areas as well, into your 2 strikers. I suppose that's for Curtis, I think, probably does give them a bit more width and a bit more crossing ability for the left. So I think that will be the decision it has to make, but I don't see anyone else challenging for that position at the minute. I mean, guys like Gassama, that might have an impact off the bench, Nadiri and Lajovski maybe as well, but in terms of starting 11, I think Derek McInnes will be try and make sure that the team is as offensively solid and compact as possible. I thought he looked good at that at the weekend, and he'll be relying on an Asgard or one of his strikers, a Shankland or a Shamiti, to come up with something special to go and win the game. I don't think it will be pretty at Paradise on Friday. I think Rangers are still very much in the early part of the kind of Derek McInnes development as a team, but I think they'll get the job done, and that's the reason why he's been brought here, is to get the job done. It's not to look pretty or not to play nice football. It's to win, and I think they'll do that on Friday. They're still a good bit away for getting the team and the squad that he wants in terms of recruitment, what he's got, I think they'll grind out a result. They'll grind out a result at Tannadice.
Just before we wrap this up, so there's a thing that we hate, journalists hate doing at the start of a campaign. You're asked to do your predictions. I've already dodged that for the website. I've told them I'm not doing it because it's the one thing you get pelters for years afterwards if you predict Rangers or Celtic title win. Sorry, somebody's keeping their horn here. Scott, you were brave enough to put your neck out and make your predictions for the season. How do you see this going? Obviously, Celtic fans, a lot of gnashing of teeth the last few weeks. They seem to be a lot happier than themselves about after a couple of arrivals, certainly a couple of incoming arrivals this week. Rangers, I think that's actually set alarm bells off amongst the Rangers support. They're thinking, my goodness, we now need to get a move on in terms of, as we say, the top end of the pitch.
Yeah.
How do you see the season going? Who's going to win the league?
Well, I'm going to stick my neck out. Set Rangers will win it, and a lot of that is down to the manager. You'll know, I mean, I've been kind of touting McInnes for this Rangers manager's job for a good few years now. 2 or 3 managers have come in instead of him, and I thought the right choice would have been McInnes. I think he's made for this job. I think he knows exactly what it entails, exactly what it needs. He learns for the best, obviously, in Walter Smith. He knows the demands and the expectations. I think he'll put a team and a squad together that's capable of going and winning a title. I mean, he came within a whisker of it last year with a Hearts team. They weren't expected to go and challenge for the title. Obviously, the resources will be much more here. Finding a better opportunity to go and try and win it this season. And although, as we've said, the recruitment isn't done yet, I think towards the end of the window, Rangers will strengthen again. I think they'll spend a few quid, especially at the top end of the pitch. It's not going to be easy. Look, Celtic, as much as there is discontent amongst the supporters, or there has been this pre-season, I think they've made 2 brilliant signings already in Duran and Hoy, so it's not going to be easy to get the title back off Celtic. But I just think the McInnes factor could be crucial. I expect him to get it right here. It's a tough ask in their first season to come in and both from 3rd to 1st and win the league. But unlike you, I'm going to stick my neck out and say I think Rangers will do it.
Well, we'll see how Derek McInnes and his Rangers team get on in that. You want to go for Friday night? For me? Oh. We'll see you come the end of August. I think you can't be kind of predictions until you get the full squad in front of you. So come back to me in August. Anyway, we'll see how Derek McInnes gets on in his first game in charge of the team, Tannadice, on Friday night. Scott and I will be there to cover everything, so you'll be able to keep up to date with everything at Record Sport Online and obviously in the paper the next day as well. We thank you, we thank our sponsors NordVPN, and we will see you next time.